Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book, The Icarus Changeling by Timothy Zahn. This is the fourth book in his big Icarus saga that he's coming out with from Baen Books. For those of you who don't know about this series, I'm going to give you the quick overview of it. In the late 90s, he released The Icarus Hunt, which was like a standalone science fiction puzzle box mystery book. And it had great success. It's outside of his Star Wars works, it's his most reviewed book. And so it was very popular for years. Fans have been asking him, are you going to do sequels? Are you going to do sequels? And he said, if I find the right story, I will. And then around 2020, he found the right story, but it wasn't with the same characters of Jordan McKell and Ixel and Terra C and the other characters from that book. So he decided to turn that into like the prequels book and to make the whole saga about Gregory and Celine. So you have the Icarus plot that came out from Baen Books in 2022. Then you had the Icarus Twin, which came out at the end of last year. And then earlier this year, he came out with the Icarus Job. So he's released 3 books previously in the series, and they're each kind of standalone in a way that they are a mystery for that particular book, but it ties into the mystery of the overall series. So there's Easter eggs and character growth and connections and stuff, but each individual mystery is kind of self-contained. And that is definitely the case with the Icarus Changeling, the 4th book in the series. This book is a little bit less puzzle boxy because it is more focused on a straight up murder mystery, but there's a ton of murders in this book. A bunch of people get murdered, and there's multiple murderers. And so it's a little bit more complex than like a single murderer in like an Agatha Christie book. So it's a little bit more complex like a puzzle box, but not quite as difficult to understand as some of his others. Like I think some of his others, the puzzle box is so complex that there's no way you could get the mystery just by reading it generally. This book, I actually did call a few elements of it. I didn't get the whole thing myself, but I was able to pick up, hey, that detail's important. Hey, that detail's important throughout the book. So it's, again, much more like a murder mystery. And like the other books in the series, and like Agatha Christie books, you spend about the last 2 or 3 chapters unraveling the mystery as the character explains everything that he's realized. And so you're following Gregory and Celine, as we have in all the books, but instead of planet hopping looking for a portal like they have been in the previous books, they're looking for the portal on the planet Elaine near the colony of Bill Swift. And so you spend this entire book on one planet, which sets it apart from the other books, where all the other books are planet hopping. And so that first of all made it a unique book in the series that I liked. There's also a character here that you see on the cover. His name is Toronto, and I won't give away what Toronto is, but he was a very interesting character, and Timothy Zahn introduced some things with his character that I was like, ooh, are we going to use that? Are we going to use that in this book? And he was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to kind of use him later, maybe. And so I was really interested in the character of Toronto. We also have some minor characters in this book, some of the villains, some of the guys that are working for the Path, which is like the other group that's looking for the Icarus portals. You have the Icarus group, which is part of the Commonwealth, and then you have their opponents, the Path, which is this other species that's kind of competing with them. And in each book, one of them gets the portal or the other one, and they're kind of jockeying back and forth for power. And they're not in an official war, but it's kind of like a Cold War type thing where each side kind of wants power. Similar to how like you have the Federation versus the Klingons, but if there's no actual battles happening between them. But the murder mystery happens, and so they're trying to figure out who's doing all these murders. And all signs point to one person, and you know as the reader, that can't possibly be the person doing the murders. Is it? And so you actually wonder if maybe or not this person that you're following is actually doing all these murders. And the title of the book, The Icarus Changeling, has like a double meaning. Yes, it has the meaning that you learn early on in the book, which of course is the whole impetus for the whole book. But there's actually a hidden meaning that you learn about at the end of the book that I was like, oh, that's genius! That's a really cool way to turn it into a double meaning of a book. So I did quite enjoy that. And it made it much more sense that it was actually the Icarus Changeling in the book, which I really really enjoyed. Also, this book has probably one of the most egregious uses of ship baiting I've ever seen. And I was on a space on Twitter where some of us were talking, and I couldn't come up with this term, and one of the guys in the space came up with it. So thank you for giving me this idea. But basically, throughout this entire series, you have Gregory and Celine. You see them clearly on this cover. You have Gregory here, Celine here. And you also see them on this cover, Gregory and Celine, and they are the two main characters of the series. It's from Gregory's point of view, and Celine is his business partner as they're going out looking for these portals. And in this book, and in all the books, there have been little nuggets of information about their dynamic that have made me and a lot of other fans say, hey, they really ought to be in a romantic relationship. And I've been saying that ever since the first book in the series. And I've continued saying it with every book. And this book has the most egregious use of what I'm calling ship baiting, relationship baiting between the two of them, I have ever seen. It's in chapter 5 if you're following along. But something happens in chapter 5, and I was like, okay, Zahn, you're teasing us. You have to know your audience wants this, and you haven't given it to them yet. And I just thought that was really frustrating. I was like, I cannot believe that it's so blatantly obvious. In the other parts, it was like, oh, you could see that there's a relationship, but maybe there's not. But in this, it's clearly there. There's also something about their dynamic that I really appreciate, that Gregory and Celine are partners, but at the same time, Gregory treats Celine in a very traditional way in the sense that he, always steps in front of her if there's going to be danger. If there's going to be like a threat, he will, like, for instance, at one point they think that someone could break into their ship, and so he actually sleeps outside her cabin to try to protect her from that threat if it ever were to come. He would be the first one to deal with it. And there's just things like that I'm like, oh, you guys just have such a great dynamic. I just really like that. I like that about Gregory. I know a lot of people complain about his dad's phrases. As my father used to say, I think that they're endearing. I think that they're very endearing. And I actually, if I were Bane or at least Tim, I would think about creating like a little flip book. Like they did this with Picard's quotes for Star Trek. And I think that it probably wouldn't be a big bestseller, but I think it would be a fun project that would kind of invigorate the fans of this series to do as my father used to say, an Icarus quotes, or a list of Icarus quotes or something like that. And you just compile all of that and maybe have some pictures and some images and stuff. But I think that would be a lot of fun to have. As I said, the mystery's a little simpler here. I was able to call it. I was some of it, not all of it. I was able to call a decent amount of it. And I appreciated that a lot of the pieces were put on the board that you could see. Some of the pieces were surprise, like in the other books, but it felt less surprise and more like, hey, he's actually trying to make the mystery obvious. So I actually, if I'm being honest, this is actually probably my favorite in the series thus far. We've had, the Icarus Hunt, the prequel, which I'm also being honest, if you count that in the saga, I guess it's still the best. But if we're talking about the 4 books from Bane that are part of the numbered saga, books 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think that Icarus Changeling is my favorite by a hair. So I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10, whereas I gave all 3 of the originals 7 out of 10s. But the point is that Tim Zahn is a consistently entertaining writer. These are not my favorite science fiction books. They're not even my favorite Timothy Zahn books, but he's consistent with them. He's delivering the quality. You know exactly what you're getting with this series of the Puzzle Box Mystery. You know exactly what you're getting with this series. So it's not the quality of the book doesn't tank between books or anything like some series. It's all very consistent. And we still have 2 more books coming out. We have the Icarus Needle, which comes out in December, and then we have the Icarus Legacy, which according to Amazon says it's going to come out in January. We'll see if it sticks to that release date. But so the series will be out and finished very soon. So it'll have 6 from the main series plus the prequel. So 7 books total. So if you're feeling, I don't want to read a series till it's completed. Well, it's going to be completed pretty darn fast, so it's worth getting to, I think. So that's my review of the Icarus Changeling. If you've read it, what did you think of the mystery? Do you agree with me about the ship baiting? And what do you think about the dynamic between Gregory and Celine and the new character that's in this book? Let me know those thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.